All right, hello and welcome everyone. My name is Jonathon Padilla. I'm a sales engineer here with Keeper Security. In this live webinar, we're going to go over how SysAdmins can better administer and support their remote employees with Keeper, okay? So during this webinar, I'll show you ways you can still utilize Keeper to maintain robust cybersecurity while working remotely. And people are like, how do we do this? How do we start this strategy with this, okay? So in this webinar, we're going to see what it looks like to integrate Keeper into your identity providers / SSO providers more than ever. Okay, we're going to look at what enforcement settings looks like to further enhance your security feature set with the Keeper security platform. Okay, we're also going to see what it looks like to take advantage of our entire stack, the Keeper stack. What does that mean? That means everything from records inside of your vault, right? From breach watch inside of your, monitoring your credentials for the dark web, for breaches, okay, down to our ARAM module. Our ARAM module, that stands for Advanced Reports and Alerting Module, and how to actually utilize that against credentials, finding out how they're getting utilized, where they're getting utilized with what devices. But before we get started, I'd really like to emphasize, if you don't know already, what is password management, right? Credential management, because really that's where your cybersecurity strategy starts, because that's where cyber attackers are really getting the strength with their attacks, right? These brute force attacks. More than ever, people are working from home, utilizing these credentials to gain access to information inside of their work environments. And here they are, unknown to them, using the credentials in an insecure manner. So that said, I'd like to welcome our special guest, solutions engineer Mitch Rosen, on the line to really explain and articulate what is password management and the Keeper Password Manager all about to begin with. Hey, Mitch.
To kind of answer that question is what is password management? And really the reason that organizations choose to use a password manager is because they want their users to ultimately have a secure place to store all those keys of the kingdom, right? Whether they're individual to the user or whether it's a credential that's shared amongst a group of users, such as an IT team, it's all about having, number one, those credentials stored in a secure place, but maybe equally as important to the security side of it is actually having a convenience side to it, right? Making those available wherever the user needs to work, right? Which is why with Keeper, when you have a password manager, you can access those passwords on your desktop app. You can access it from your web browser, using a browser extension, on your mobile device, even using command line interface such as what we have Keeper Commander makes that readily available. And because they're all client-side encryption, you have that peace of mind that those credentials are securely stored. And so what it does do for the end user is it enables them to use a unique credential for every login they have, and it enables them to use a complex credential. So no longer are users required to remember the passwords. They don't have to end up with password fatigue, trying to generate new randomly complex passwords. Let the password manager generate those for you. Allow those to be unique for every credential you have, and then all you need to know is how to get into your vault, whether that be natively, meaning you put in the master password that you configured, or as what we have, the ability for organizations to set that up with a IDP and allowing them to single sign on into their vault.
Nice, nice. And I really like how you said unique, strong credentials per application or website. A lot of times, especially as you start rolling out your cybersecurity strategies, your IDP and SSO ends up being one of them. And so when we think about that, I think about this one single credential that allows you into all of these places, but I see a single point of failure. And I think this is where Keeper starts playing into the integrations and your security strategies in your organization. So that stated, what does it look like for Keeper to integrate, right? And this is what we're going to be showing you today, to integrate into your identity providers, SSO providers, such as Azure and Octa, because, even during this time of social distancing, okay, this COVID scenario that we have going on, we're still hiring and firing people, okay? We're still going through process change management. We're still trying to find secure ways to provide our employees resources remotely, okay? But for the sysadmins, this is like a nightmare for them, right? How do we now gain automation into into playing a huge role into our cybersecurity strategy with a password manager such as Keeper, right? Playing into their SSO providers, and that seamless onboarding and offboarding of new employees, right, that may need information, that may need a certain credential or resource, right, into their environment, especially in these remote scenarios. Yeah. So, and that is, go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is with a good onboarding plan, right? One of the things we're seeing more and more organizations do is, initially they might have subscribed to Keeper as a means for just a small team to have access to shared credentials oftentimes. But what we're seeing more and more often, and really this is the mindset every organization needs to fall under, is it's not, password management is not just an IT team or not just a finance team sort of issue. It's an organizational wide concern. Every single user has credentials. Even if you're using single sign-on, there are so many credentials that organizations still use that aren't related to single sign-on that every single person should have their own vault that they use and securely store that. And so onboarding becomes an even bigger challenge for administrators to think about. But as I'm sure you're going to get into, having that ability to integrate into the Octas and the Azures and the different identity providers makes that capability of expanding organizational wide so easy and so a no-brainer that why wouldn't you want that same security with every single user in the organization and not just the IT organization or just the finance organization?
Yeah, speaking of organization as well, one last thing to touch on is, aside from that, also just ensuring that the user adoption on this. Just to restate this, that this platform is device and operating system agnostic, and that's where we see a lot of our success, especially now more than ever. People are finding that solution that is device and operating system agnostic, and Keeper does line up with that. So that said, I think this is a really good time to now deep dive into the administrative console side of Keeper to really see what it looks like to integrate into your IDP and SSO providers to allow that seamless automation for the administrator and allow that automation of providing that new user, per se, the resources they need to provide their job functions. I'm going to go ahead and share out my screen in this instance so we can go ahead and take a deep dive into that. All right.
And by the way, while Jonathan's bringing that up, if anyone has questions, feel free to throw it in the chat. Throw those questions into the live storm, and we'll try to address those as it's happening. But we'll definitely address them, before the webinar is completed.
So if everyone can see my screen here, naturally, as you get into the administrative console, you come to this dashboard. Administration section here allows you to go ahead and start provisioning your users, roles. Again, roles are for the purposes of enforcement settings, how users can utilize the Keeper security platform, okay? Got teams. Teams are for the purposes of sharing, okay, with or without restrictions. Obviously, we have two-factor mechanisms and provisioning. So naturally in here, if you first started utilizing this platform, whether you have the business plan or whatever it may be, you see, if you haven't done your integrations yet, you're doing manual processes, correct? You're creating your users here, right, manually, name, email address, they get an invite, right? You're creating your roles here. And they do have their automations, but we're gonna dig into that. Okay, we have our teams. Again, you're creating your teams here, and you're adding your users manually for whatever they may be. Okay, a lot of manual processes. This has got really heavy and hectic as you're managing. Oh, I'm onboarding a new user over here in my Octa portal, and I got to add into these groups, and then I got to jump over here into Keeper and add them here as well. And so now we're going to provide you that seamless integration of onboarding and that one central management, okay? And so this becomes more important than ever. So that stated, we're going to go ahead and just focalize on one provider in this instance for demonstrational purposes. That provider in this moment would be Octa, okay? So how do we start with provisioning? Just real quickly, okay? In order to start with provisioning, it must be put within a node, okay? A node is just a way to organize, okay? Organize your team's roles and your provisionings into one isolated area. So add a node, okay? You cannot add here into the root node. To add a node, simply add a node there. Yeah, you give it a name, okay? Just as I already have. Okay, Padilla Co. And within this node, I have other subnodes. All right, within these subnodes, this is where you'll find my provisioning method. Okay, I have two provisioning methods going on for my automations. Okay, we have single sign-on. Okay, single sign-on allows your users to go ahead and utilize their credentials that have already been instated by the administrator into your identity provider, again, in Octa. Okay, so not another set of passwords you need to remember to yet get into another interface, okay? And then SCIM, System for Cross-Domain Identity Management, okay? This is the automation of as you create your users within Octa, you tie them to the Keeper application, they're gonna get automatically created here, okay? So that stated, let's take a look at that, okay? So adding a provisioning method, simply add method here, we're selecting single sign-on. Next, you give it an enterprise domain. I know you see JIT right here. This is just-in-time provisioning. Okay, we're going to show you what that looks like as well for onboarding and provisioning. Okay, and then you state what you want to call your enterprise domain. This could be anything. It doesn't need to be your actual domain. Your domain.com. You can whatever's easy for your users to remember. Okay, in this instance, I have my provisioner right here, and I simply stated it. It's Octapad, and this is the one we're going to be looking at, okay? Let's go ahead and move on over to Octa for a moment just to see what it looks like with the Keeper app.
Hey, Jonathan, one of the questions that we had is what is Octa? And I'm glad you're going to the screen just so they can see what that is. Octa is an identity provider. Basically, they're a solution that provides single sign-on so that an organization can allow the user to log into Octa, and then Octa will federate that login to different sites that integrate into it. We happen to be one of those sites that can leverage that federation so that you'll use your Octa credential to gain access into your Keeper vault. Now, the reason it's such a good pairing between Octa and Keeper is because not everything integrates into single sign-on, right? Single sign-on really provides a level of convenience, right? I just have to authenticate once. That authentication allows me then to leverage that into other sites and services that integrate. Only about 15 to 20% of the sites out there really have a single sign-on integration. So what we're finding is a lot of organizations are also still requiring a secure method of storing those credentials, which is why Keeper and Octa are such a nice pairing, right? It's like chocolate and peanut butter. We go together real perfect.
That's a really good explanation, Mick. Yeah, very good question, correct? Yeah, what is Octa? It's just like Azure. It's another identity provider. So many of them out there. And Keeper, Keeper integrates with these identity providers, okay? Either through SAML 2.0, okay? Good to mention there, right? SCIM, we integrate with your identity providers and SSO providers, again, enhancing your cybersecurity strategies, okay? So let's take a look at that. The Keeper application, I do have that inside of my Octa instance. We're gonna take a look at what it looks like to provision someone automatically into the system, okay? So here, go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, another question that we get is about the node structure, right? I noticed that you had gone to a separate node in order to have that single sign-on capability. And just so everyone knows, right, we will allow these integrations at a subnode level, and that's just to protect your account, right? If for some reason, Octa goes awry and everybody gets locked out, or if you're using the bridge for an on-premise Active Directory integration, if those get locked out, by having them at a sub-node level, those integrations still allow you access at the root level node. And so that's why we require that in the system. Smaller organizations, unless you're going to integrate into a single sign-on or unless you're going to integrate into a bridge for Active Directory integration, you don't necessarily need to create different nodes. Nodes provide a lot of power, if you're going to have separation of users from seeing one another or whatnot. But at its simplest, and I always like to talk about Keeper in a KISS sort of approach of keeping it simple. You know, if you're an organization of 15, 20 people, do you need to be in different nodes? Not really. Everybody can just exist in the same node, and you know, teams can be just, you know, 2 or 3 users that you share credentials with. Roles really at its simplest is enforcement settings, right? Policies or rules that everybody in the organization is governed under, such as master password complexity if you're not using single sign-on, or preventing sharing outside the organization. So that would be, you know, why you would use roles, why you would set up teams, and when you would choose to extend nodes, right? It's really just more of an organizational capacity. At its simplest, everybody can just exist in the same node unless you're integrating with one of our advanced integration points, then you want subnodes. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's a really good prelude into exactly what we're going to be showing here, Mitch. And it's exactly those reasons, again, that we integrate, right? Again, it's allowing that central management seamless integration. So in this instance, let's take a look at this real quick. Let's just look at our directory structure real fast, because again, naturally, this is our IDP and SSO provider. Okay, just like other ones out there already. And the user that we're going to be focalizing here is this Octa user here, okay? He's here in my directory, but he's not tied to the application yet. So let's see how seamless and how the automation happens on this when we add that user to Keeper and integrate Keeper into their provider, okay? Here's our application inside of Octa. All right, so here's our assignments, okay? So we have several assignments, okay? You can assign people individually, or you can assign people at a group basis, okay? Stating that this, you know, group and or people in here are able to utilize SSO, okay? So let's see what it looks like when we tie someone, okay, to this application, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and just assign a user here.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, right, we're showing Octa, but the integration process at a high level is the same for Azure as it is for ADFS, as it is for Ping Identity or OneLogin or whoever your IDP is. It's all about, number one, configuring it on the admin console, as Jonathan just showed you. The second step in that is to download and install the SSO Connect application, which is necessary in our environment because of our encryption model, where that SSO Connect provides the keys necessary for users to decrypt their vault after they've authenticated into the IDP. And then the third setup aspect is what we're looking at now, and that's the configuration on the IDP. In our SSO Connect guide, we have all those steps in order so that you'll set it up in the admin console, you'll install and configure the SSO Connect server, and then you'll set up the application inside of your IDP. And again, we have instructions for Octa, for Azure, for ADFS, for Ping, you know, a whole slew of different IDPs.
Yeah, really good question as well. We will be showing a little bit of Azure today just to make people understand that these are all kind of the same integrations. And if you're still confused after going to our website, looking at the documentation, okay, reach out to your, you know, ISR, your inside sales rep, or your customer success manager, okay, because they will really give you insights on that and connect you with the engineers to start helping you roll that out into your organization if you haven't already. All right, so going back to this user, I'm going to go ahead and tie to this user to the application at this point. And we do see here, all right, assignments done. Okay, since the user got put in there at this given moment, okay, provisioning is going to kick in because we are utilizing SCIM, all right, System for Cross-Domain Identity Management. Okay, so let's look at that. Over here, our user in just moments time here, if not already, will be coming in here fairly soon in an invited state. We can just ensure of their assignments. Okay. There's the user in an invited state. This is good. Now, I received an email to activate this user, okay? So I'm going to go here and I'm just going to check my email, which you guys cannot see momentarily, to grab this invitation.
And by the way, the invitation can be customizable inside the admin console.
Yes, right over in the section, configuration section there at the bottom. If you want to turn on your Custom invitations, this is where you put your own subjects, message heading, the body of the message, what you want the button to say for that acceptance, okay? And then we will inject that code into your message body for that user to activate their account within Keeper. So in this given moment, I am going to get my account signed up. All right, I'm in the invited state. I got my email. I'm following my invitation here. Now it understands that Octa is my identity provider because that's who I integrated this one with. Okay, as I showed you, that provisioning method was tied to my Octa instance. Okay, once I authenticate to my IDP, Keeper does recognize that, okay? This given moment, it's asking me for my to create a security question, okay? This is the event if we have to ever recoup our account, and for whatever reason, something bad may have happened. This will allow for that break glass scenario to recoup your account. Now, my favorite thing to do is to put a question and not answer it for what it's worth. So I'm not going to put a color here. Good security practice. Now, what you're seeing here is that SSO Connect server doing what it's supposed to do. It's generating your data keys and handing that off to your user, okay, in an RSA 2048 private public key fashion, okay? And as you just seen, my vault is now set up, okay? I've entered my vault, I've decrypted my vault, and now I'm an SSO and a user of the Keeper security platform. Yes, nothing's in my vault yet. We'll get to that in a moment when it comes down to sharing. But this, what you just seen is how Skim would provision, okay, your user from your IDP, from Octa or Azure or whomever you have, over onto the Keeper security platform, put them in the invited state to get them utilizing Keeper. That's data. Let's look at another automation, okay, and its functions when it comes to IDP and SSO providers, okay? That's going to be your group assignments, okay? So let's take a look at this. So another thing people like to automate is the creation, again, of teams, okay? We got teams over here, okay? There's none there yet, but what are teams for? Again, teams are for the purposes of sharing to groups of people, okay, in either a restricted or non-restricted fashion, okay? It also allows, as soon as that user that gets onboarded, okay, to already be set as a team and have a set of credentials ready to go inside of their vault so they can start working immediately and gain access, okay? So what are you doing with these shares? You're providing these remote workers to resources to gain access, not just to credentials, but those credentials gain them access to resources, work resources, okay? So let's take a look at that. I'm going to go ahead and push a team here. Now that user is in an active state, again, your users won't show up in their teams until they become in an active state from inactive. Okay. And here we are. You see that it's pushing. It's going to be pushing that group here. Boom, it's pushed it. 1224. That was really nice. Let's go ahead and look at our platform here. And in just a moment, oh, I'm sincere apologies. Over here in our approval queue. So sometimes when you're adding groups of people as teams, you may or may not want to automatically approve them or have them in at all, or you maybe want to put disablements on them prior to them becoming a team. So we do have an approval queue here. You just go ahead and select your team and approve that. Once approved, it'll go right into its node where Octa exists. So let's give that a moment.
By the way, Jonathan, a question that people oftentimes have, and I think I saw that in the chat, is, is using a single sign-on a requirement with Keeper? And the answer is no, you do not have to use a single sign-on. In fact, in many ways, using a single sign-on in addition to Keeper is redundant in that you can have all your logins to your different websites stored inside your vault. And if you're using a unique credential inside there that you don't know and it's complex, and you're just allowing the browser extension to fill that in when you hit those sites, is there a need to also have single sign? No, not really. And so oftentimes, the single sign-on is, again, for that convenience, right? It may be integrating with an on-premise Active Directory, and users are on their onboarding process put into different security groups, or in this case, translates to groups inside of Octa. And they just see, because they're a large organization, it's easier to manage it, in a tool, because they have a few hundred to a few thousand employees that there's a little more level of automation in the background. But if you're an organization of 15, 20 people, it's having a single sign-on solution it's a nice to have. It's definitely not a have to have, especially if you're already using Keeper Vault, which is giving you the capability to essentially single sign-on into the vault, and then leveraging those unique credentials that you don't even know what they are, the ability to facilitate the login to those different sites using the browser extension.
Yeah, so as we've seen here, and I might have, yeah, here we go. As we've seen here, I added the Octa team, okay, group membership into the Keeper application assignment. So let's look at that. Okay, so here's our group push assignments here. Okay, Octa team. All right, this is our creation. All right, we see a user in there. All right, so just my user from Octa. Okay, and so what happens? So what's this allowing to do? Okay, what do we get to do with this? Well, let's take a look at what happens when we start utilizing teams. Okay, so any user, okay, again, any user within a team, okay, so these users within this group here gets pushed to Keeper as a team, okay, and they'll be in that group. And then what do you get to do from that? Well, some automations, if not already shared out to groups already. Okay, so sharing to groups of people, sharing to teams. Let's take a look at that. So just remember, if you don't know this already, in order to share to a team, you have to utilize a shared folder. Okay, a shared folder is the only way you can share it to a team. Okay, so let's look at that. Here's a shared folder, some IT resources and some credentials in there. Okay, and so and here we have our user base, and so we can start adding our teams. Okay, oh, look at that, the Octa team is there. Well, this is good because now we can just simplistically select our team. Okay,
and by the way, this is a good point with regards to teams. Just because you're in the same team with someone doesn't mean they have carte blanche access into your vault, right? Again, your vault is zero knowledge. Only you know the credentials that you are storing in there. The only thing the team gets access to is when you leverage a shared folder and you give that team access to that shared folder. So a nice way of thinking about a shared folder is like a little bit of an escrow account, right? Anything you place inside that shared folder, anyone that you invite to that shared folder will have access to it, given the permissions that you set on it. So if you allow them to edit the record in the shared folder, they'll have that edit permission. And that can be an individual user or a team. And the team is defined by either manually creating it or being defined by the skim process, leveraging an identity provider, just as Jonathan has showed.
Yep. All right. So, yeah. So here we are. We're looking at our user base. We're adding our teams here, and let's just go over teams just momentarily, because teams can get very complex very quickly, and I can make this real fast. Let's look at it. Just remember, teams can be like a trifecta, if not more, of settings. Okay, you have disablements of viewing of passwords. Okay, disablements of record edits, disablements of record reshares. Okay, that's the first layer really to sharing with the teams and any restrictions you may want to put upon those teams. Okay, the second layer of restrictions really comes down to these default folder settings. Okay, yeah, a team may be able to do a record edit, record reshare, whatever it may be, but if by default the folder is pushing no permissions upon a team, obviously, as you can see here, they're just simply not going to have permissions. Okay, now it doesn't really matter how many teams you add. Okay, let's just, for example, we're going to add a couple teams here. Okay, and say you want different permissions for this other team, right? One team is restricted, one team is not. They're allowed to do administrative functions. Great, then let them manage users and records. Okay, because if you have that set to no permissions, well, it doesn't matter what team permissions you may have. They're not going to be able to do anything in the vault. Now, it doesn't stop there, okay? Let's just take a look at something really fast one more time, because this is like the mystery behind sharing. And again, this is rather important to take a look at when you're now trying to secure your records. Here we are, we're giving our users records to utilize, and we need now ensure that we're also sharing those in a secure fashion, because we also need to remember that the institution itself, the company itself, also needs to protect itself, right, with its own information against, anyone. You never know. One day someone could be a rogue employee, and we'll kind of talk about some of those scenarios and how we alleviate that situation, okay? So let's, as you see here, this DocuSign is read-only, okay? So even if, again, that team is able to manage a record, share a record, whatever it may be, well, they're not going to be able to do much with it because it's only in a read-only fashion, okay? So if you want to change that, you can simply change it here, okay? If you have multiple records, okay, if you have multiple records, you can simply click on that, and that'll put the permissions upon your multiple records, and you can change that, to edit or share, so that that team is allowed to manage that record. I'm not going to save some of these settings. I don't need them. But speaking of enforcement settings, let's take a look at something really quick here, because enforcement settings is really important to go over, okay? Now, I'm really excited that we just came out with a feature set that's going to really alleviate a lot of painstakes for a lot of SSO and IDP cloud users, okay? And that is, we now allow, okay, roles to be inducted, okay? Let's see, inducted upon your team base now, okay? So instead of, you can have this selected, okay, but maybe that's just not the role you want upon certain people or certain teams, okay? Well, again, you can always individually add users, okay, here in this fashion, or now we can just do this all in one fell swoop and add an entire team, okay? Add an entire team to this role, okay? That means those enforcement settings, whatever team you pick, right? Those enforcement settings will go upon your users inside of that team. That stated, let's just take a deep dive into some of these enforcement settings, because they really play a huge role, okay, into going further and securing your credentials within Keeper, okay? Because again, listen, we're working remotely, okay? And some people are forced to VPN into their environments to gain access to resources, okay? This is important more than ever, because there's a really cool feature set with Keeper that we have that I'll show momentarily as we run through our enforcement settings and further enhance that scenario, okay? And here I'll show you what we're talking about, okay? So we have allowing your SSO users to create a master password. Let me just uncover the mystery on that really quick again. So if you want to allow your users to have a master password in case, which scenarios? A scenario of which, let's say you're in an airplane, in airplane mode, maybe they don't have the option for Wi-Fi, okay, but you need to gain access to your credential, okay? What kind of credential, Jonathan? Let me tell you, credit card information, because you left your wallet in your suitcase that actually got onboarded onto the plane, okay? But you want to buy, that beverage or that meal, right? So you gain access to your credit card information, right? That's inside of your vault. Keeper holds that information, right? So you can allow users to have a master password, okay? But I will note, and I've talked to several people about this, if you're going to do this, you're going to want to ensure you're using two-factor, okay? Two-factor is another huge point to this whole scenario, okay? Two-factor from Keeper on the Keeper side, if you're going to be turning on a master password for your users. This states, okay, again, that when your users enter a master password, they would be asked for that second factor authentication method. Because if you don't have that turned on the Keeper side, and say you're only utilizing it on your IDP/SSO side, it'll ask you there, which is great, but it will never ask you for your if you turned on this master password for your SSO.
Hey, Jonathan,
Yes, sir.
Let's take a moment and let's focus on two-factor.
Most definitely.
Especially as it pertains to organizations that are considering using single sign-on or using single sign-on. one of the questions we get asked all the time is, if I'm two-factoring into my IDP, do I need to turn on two-factor into my vault? And the answer is, from a security standpoint, it's better to have it at the Keeper application layer as well as when you authenticate into the IDP. Reason being is that authentication IDP, right? You want two-factor on there to validate your identity, and because that can get you into Keeper, you want that to validate. Now, the reason you would want it also on Keeper is because users that are single sign-on in, are still susceptible to someone trying to maliciously gain access to their account, even though it's through single sign-on. So to aid in that, having that two-factor would give more capability. Now, we get the argument of friction with the users having to two-factor once or twice. Again, we're just giving best practices here, right? It's best to have it in both places. Most organizations I talk to choose to only place it at the single sign-on. But whether you're single sign-on in or not, we absolutely recommend, and I can't reiterate this enough, to have not only a complex master password or in conjunction with single sign-on, but to also have a two-factor set up on your account. And with that, while we do give the capability of allowing an SMS or a text message to be your two-factor, we would strongly recommend a TOTP authentication over that of an SMS authentication. And just the reason is, and you can Google this, phones can be spoofed. It's easier for a malicious user to circumvent an SMS two-factor than it is for them to duplicate it with a two-factor. So using a TOTP. So using a TOTP is going to be the more secure method of that of an SMS. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Indeed, and I love that you even touched upon TOTP as well, because in a moment we're gonna see what does TOTP look like anyway, and what does a Keeper record look like when you use TOTP in it, right? Again, another security set within our credentials. So yes, two-factor is huge, and turning that on, okay, when your users land in this enforcement setting and requiring the use of two-factor is very important, pertinent within the enforcement settings. You can easily, again, as Mitch was talking about, if you want to force a certain TOTP upon your users, okay, you could turn off any number of TOTP features for your users and stick specific to one if you wanted to, or give them a couple of feature sets there for TOTP, and this is the section here that you would do that. Moving aside from there, from TOTP, we got some platform restrictions here. Just as simplistically, hey, do you want to force your users to use, say, the Keeper desktop app, right? The browser extension, which we have up here, okay, which allows that nice seamless input of the username, password, and possible TOTP code, correct? Right? Mobile, you can restrict the use of the desktop easily by toggling it on and off. And Keeper Chat, we'll touch base on that briefly, but Keeper Chat does allow for that secure communication to your teams and staffers, and that's more important than ever, especially when we're communicating remotely. This stuff is not in clear text, okay? Because a lot of people are sharing images, usernames, passwords, right, through chat, right? That's not encrypted. How is that safe? Well, and this is where we'll show you how Keeper shines in that aspect, okay? Let's look at the vault features, okay? So aside from just like some of these preventions, okay, like what are some of the informations that we like turning on that are pertinent to like an admin, okay, to get more insights on what's going on, okay? So if you're utilizing BreachWatch, right, and BreachWatch, again, that's our platform looking at the dark web, looking at the credentials inside of your vault, and checking for any breaches against those credentials and alerting you of those breaches in an automated fashion through our ARAM module, okay? So, and if you're utilizing a SIEM or SIM externally, you can turn these on to push out to it. Okay, I really like this one, the generated password complexity. Okay, so this is really enforcing like your users on the length, right, and character sets of what this generated password is going to be for a specific URL or IP. You know, this could be like an HR portal, right? This could be your firewall, like a Meraki one. This is important. That's web facing possibly, right? It's good to have a strong and unique password for that, and we can conform that length and again any complexity of that
Jonathan,
to the user. Yes, sir.
can we also set that to make it like a default rule on any domain?
If you could do an asterisk if you would like, and that encompasses and as we know, the asterisk in the universal world means, you know, all or everything, correct? And that would encompass doing that. If you don't want to spell out every single URL on the World Wide Web, you state it as an asterisk. .com or .net, however you wanted to do it, right? So we have our examples in here. Does that answer the question, Mitch?
Perfect.
Excellent. Cool. This is one I really like. Okay, I think about, listen, as it used to be like manager of IT, okay, what I never entrusted fully, and I think this goes for a lot of managers and directors, like these credentials, you're giving the kingdom to the world, like it's just the kingdoms and keys to your staffers, right? And now we want to ensure we do some protections upon those. Okay, so again, anywhere from team disablement of viewing of passwords, okay, down to like deleting of records, right? Imagine if your junior admin had all these credentials in his vault, right? He's upset one day for whatever reason, right? But unfortunately, he has the keys to the kingdom, right? And he can delete these out of his vault and purge them. Well, we can restrict that from happening, okay? So we can set any number of days here. My favorite number here is 90 days, okay? Someone can delete something out of their vault, but if they try to go to the recycling bin and remove those items out of there, okay, it's not going to work. It's not going to allow them to. You have to, it's a grace period of 90 days, okay? This protects the user as well as myself, right? Protects the users because sometimes people empty their recycling bins. They're like, oh, wait, I needed that. Okay, don't worry. It prevents the user from, again, deleting because, hey, I'm quitting this company and I'm deleting these credentials right now. Well, sorry, I'm going to be able to have time to lock your account and change things up so you cannot enter or proceed, even if you did try to delete, proceed to do further damage, okay? We do have days before deleted records automatically get purged. You could set this, obviously, to any number of days, but obviously it needs to be more than days before items can be cleared out of your vault, okay? Sharing and uploading, this is a big one for me, and specifically this line item right here. Okay, we're talking about securities and these enforcement settings. Okay, this is a big one for me. Preventing record sharing to users outside of the Keeper Enterprise environment. Okay, that's your specific Keeper Enterprise environment. All right, preventing employees from, hey, I'm going to share this to another user at this company that has Keeper as well. Okay, well that may not be something that's wanted or desired. Okay, so you can turn that off. Okay, another one I really like as well is preventing the exporting of records from the web app or the desktop app, right? That states the user is not just going to be able to go over here and go to their settings, right, and go ahead and export those credentials, right? Again, we're talking about a person exiting a department, right? Export those credentials out of the Keeper vault onto their desktop.
Yeah, what some organizations do, and sorry to interrupt, is they have that off by default, or rather the enforcement on to prevent users from exporting. And then while we do allow for an organization for users to also have a personal vault, and that's up to each organization whether they want that. Organizations that choose not to allow their users to have one, but allow their users to store personal credentials in there, they'll use that export as a means of, kind of sitting down with the user and going through and saying, okay, this is a organizational credential, so we're going to go ahead and transfer that and keep that one, but this is a personal credential, you'll keep that. And then they remove the enforcement and allow the user to export all their personal data. It's kind of a long way around it. You know, having their own personal vault is, in my opinion, a better way to go, right? That keeps your P's and your carrots separate. To put all your personal credentials in your personal vault, or your work-related credentials in your work vault, and then you never have to worry about the two touching.
And that stated, Mitch, this is where I definitely encourage people, right? Good for bringing that up there, right? You can add those personal accounts here, so you can do that account switching, okay? Add it in here, and when you have something that you want to put in your personal vault, okay, you authenticate, switch over to that personal vault, do your personal stuff in there. Meanwhile, keep your enterprise or your work credentials separate. Okay, so that's really good insights. Thank you, Mitch, for that. Keeper fill. Now this goes down to our people have been asking for this feature, right? Can we control where Keeper can fill in these usernames and passwords, right, on specific websites? Okay, well, you can disable Keeper fill on the browser extension and prompt to fill, right? On the browser extension. This is the browser extension up here, just real fast, okay? What does it look like? Let's take a look at what that looks like real quick, okay? Keeper fill, and doing this, we're also going to show you how we do TOTP as well. So you do see that our Keeper records hold TOTP codes. These are rotational, okay? And so again, just launching this fairly quickly and just seeing how we do TOTP in comparison to having to pick up your phone. Okay, so, and this is really nice, especially when you're utilizing credentials, okay, that are sharing out to a team, okay, and these teams, they don't, listen, I don't want people calling me up, okay, for credentials, for a TOTP credential. It's a nightmare. I've had to do it before with my staffers in the past as they're trying to enter some of these portals, okay. So you'll see here in an automated fashion momentarily that my TOTP code will get injected for me as soon as Dropbox decides to move. Just give it a moment here.
Yeah, and just based on time, Jonathan, we might want to kind of focus a little bit of our allotted time towards the advanced reporting capability as well as Bridge Watch.
Indeed. Let's let this thing do its thing here. I'm going to go ahead and continue on with this. Again, for that, you can disable, as you guys see, the automatic filling of that information did happen. You can disable the prompt to fill and the auto submit in those browser extension for your staffers. Again, if you want to disable Keeper fill on any specific website, you could do that here. Going on, let's move on to well, one more feature here, at least, to disable let's see, prevent users from changing their email. Maybe a desire, okay, that you guys don't want your users being able to go into their vaults, okay, go over here, settings, okay, and changing their email address, okay. So you could disable that, all right, within your institution, preventing, you know, further action from someone changing it out to, say, their personal email and ripping those creds onto their way. Okay, IP whitelisting. I actually love this one for several reasons. Okay, maybe you don't have a firewall. Maybe you do. That's okay. And maybe you're forcing your users to VPN into the environment. Okay, whatever which way scenario. Okay, but this states right here. Okay, you can force where the use of Keeper is being utilized at. Okay, rather that's, you know, a range of networks, right? Here, I'll do it this way. 1.1.1 on over to say 172.30.1.222. Okay, that range of networks, you could do an entire /24. You could be specific to one IP. Okay, you can add multiple ranges in here. Okay, this states that only these specific IPs, okay, there's people that get crazy and they add the IPs of their machines, literally, okay, or specific LAN spaces, VLAN spaces can access Keeper. This is important. This is the feature set that enhances your VPN capabilities. And how, right? Well, we're not allowing your Keeper enterprise portal to be accessible out in the World Wide Web, right? We're forcing you to say, oh, you are VPNing into your environment. Once you get onto these LAN IP ranges, this is now how you can gain access to these credentials. Again, further enhancing your credential security, all right? It's specific inside of your environment. Last but not least, okay, account transfer, okay? When this is turned on, and let me show you this over here actually, on a role that's currently turned on, okay? So account transfer is for what, okay? Account transfer states that the admin, okay, the admin can transfer the credentials, and I believe I have this one turned on. All right, could and I can turn, yeah, could transfer the credentials, okay, out of a user's vault, okay, and that's what does that look like simplistically? That's you select your user, okay. I'm just going to select my account here fairly quickly, show you, boom, okay, account transfer. Select the account transfer. And you'll select the user you transfer that account to, okay? Maybe it's yourself, you're the admin, or maybe it's the person that's replacing that job function, right? IT manager or something, they have the credentials in their vault to do their job, but now we're gonna transfer it to the new user. This is one nice way to do it, or you're doing it because you're recouping your credentials off of an employee's vault for whatever reason, okay? All right, so past that, I know we probably have lots of questions, and I'm not sure if we are going to be covering anything else aside from our enforcement settings down to that. Well, let's show you our ARAM module. I know a lot of questions are going to come up with this, so before that happens, let me show you real quick, okay? So sharing, okay, just real quick. My user now, as you can see, has, okay, that IT resource in here. It's been shared out to me because I am part of that team, of which you've seen me add that team from Octa, okay, from Octa over here onto the Keeper platform. I am part of that team, therefore that's why it's now, boom, a resource for me in my vault, okay? How do we now utilize our ARAM, okay, our ARAM module to get more insights on how these credentials are actually being utilized? Let me show you real quick. So either you're looking at some recent activities, okay, just going through, okay, what user are we going to look at, okay, this user, okay, last event type, okay, logged in, okay, maybe a general use, right? General use. We want to know about specific, okay, credentials, okay. So here's how we're going to get specific, okay? We're going to put the unique identifier in there. Say we want to know specifically when, let's say, one of these credentials over here, when this Dropbox credential was used, right? Here's that unique identifier, okay? And we could put that in here to really get some insights of when it was used, okay? I could even get further insights on the device type, okay? If I wanted to get really specific insights, right, on geolocation, I didn't want to know everything. I could get specific about one, but in this instance, I want to know about everything, okay? I can apply that. I could just see roughly, hey, this is now how my credentials, okay, are getting utilized as this report gets chugged out. This is how these credentials are getting utilized. Great. Now, how do we automate this? I want to know, like, I want to get an email. I want to get a text message. Maybe when a credential is being utilized, or maybe when there's like breaches going on or against a credential. Well, this is where we allow you, okay, to create these custom alerts and reports. So over here, you can name this what you know, test alert. Okay, just test alert. What we want to look at here is what can we look at and utilize. Well, here's one of my favorite things to do. Okay, I like to understand when someone's logging in, right, or failed to log in, because you know, say that that Octa user is going to utilize a credential tonight at 10:30, right, from their home, right? But I'm finding that they didn't actually do that. They actually utilized that credential, okay, from their phone and not even from their home, okay? So they're in a different state or whatever it may be. It's important for me to get insights into my credentials for whatever reason it may be. You know, every company has their reasons why they want insights to their credentials. Okay, so general use, again, open to record, and we can get specific about that record as I showed you over there, right? I also want to know, hey, are any breaches going on with that specific record, whatever it may be? Down over here, all right, the UID, I should still have it in there. Great. I can be specific about my user, okay? Because I want to keep an eye on this new user, right? He's my new IT guy. I'm not sure if I trust him or not. All right. I want to know every occurrence when he's doing this. Okay. And the nice thing about this, if you have a nice management team, it's a ladder. You know, you have director, manager, controller. All right. You can add all of those recipients on there. Okay. So it doesn't have to be just one. All right. So.
Hey, Jonathan.
Yep.
This is actually bringing up a good point. A lot of times people want to know, hey, can I monitor, someone's Facebook account, or can I, see whenever they access, another website? The important thing to remember is a password manager is not the same as a web proxy. So keeping in the context that, vaults are encrypted and there's zero knowledge, what makes Keeper so secure and why we're, the best in class is the fact that we don't leak any of that metadata. In fact, when a user sets up a record and they don't share it to anyone, that record has its own encryption key and nobody can see the data inside that record. That includes the URL, that includes the title of it. And so if you wanted to know if they have that type of record in their vault, it needs to be shared to you. So if you're an administrator, you just don't have that visibility. And that's a good thing, right? That's providing them a peace of mind that what they place in their vault is secure. But if there is a record that you need to monitor, especially if it's a shared one and multiple people have access to it, setting up that advanced reporting and alerts will give you that valuable insight whenever someone opens the record and sees the content or fills the record in. And so that's really the benefit of advanced reporting, isn't so much to see that someone has a record, but rather it's really monitoring those ones that are sensitive and that you need accountability on.
Exactly. Some of those records include RDP sessions into systems, right? Those RDP records, gaining access to systems or SSH, whatever it may be. Those are kind of some important ones that I think of the way I use Keeper. Now the ones are again your SSO/IDP portals and where you're accessing those from. Sometimes, again, we push our information out to SIEMs or SIMs, however you like to pronounce it. Okay, and really that information gives you valuable insights about how a credential is getting used, when a credential got used, and maybe even line up, okay, we're getting these reports on our breach watch that, hey, credentials are getting close to being breached or at risk. Okay, and we can start lining some things up about when, where, why, and how, which is nice and it's important. Again, this is why we collect this data and push it out to a SIM. All right, it's so you can get those deeper insights into credential usage and your credentials in general.
Hey, Jonathan, I think we are at the top of the hour, and I know we've answered most questions. I don't think we were able to get to all of them, but we were able to answer most of them either directly in the webinar itself or via the chat. If you have additional questions, we'd like you to join our weekly Q&A webinars, and we'll try to get to all those things as they happen. We appreciate you guys joining, and Jonathan, anything else you want to say?
No, I really appreciate you guys joining as well, and I appreciate the people that are currently utilizing the Keeper Security platform. And if you're looking to further enhance the Keeper Security platform within your institution, and say you don't have the enterprise version of our platform to really integrate into your IDPs and SSOs and harness our entire technology stack, again, please feel free to reach out to us either through our website, okay, through your inside sales reps, if you know who they are, through your customer success manager. That's what they're there for. Again, the success of the usage of Keeper within your institution. Feel free to reach out to them and we can get the ball rolling with you guys and assist in these processes.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. Have a safe work from home day and enjoy.
Take care, everyone.